I was born in 1920 in Montreal. We followed the news all during the 30s, and we hoped it wouldn't come to war, but it did come to war. I was in my third year, or just beginning my third year at university, and we were told there was no equipment, nothing to be done. Finish your studies, you'll be more valuable when you have graduated than you would be now. So I carried on university for 2 more years, and then of course when I graduated in 1941, the great question was what to do. I looked for a post. It was difficult to find one. I finally joined the Victoria Rifles of Canada, an infantry regiment, and I served with them for a few months. And from there, I went to Brockville, to the Eastern Officers Training Corps, which was on active service. That's from January 42 on. 3 months intense and very strenuous training, and that's how I qualified then as a second lieutenant in the active force. I was posted overseas as a reinforcement officer. 6 of us were sent, and we joined a company of the infantry, and we went off on the Queen Mary to England. It was pretty obvious there was going to be a landing in France, and we would be part of it. We had no idea, it was deep secret, where it would be and when. And of course, we were there. When D-Day came, we simply knew by the planes going overhead and then the announcement when we heard. We were an armored division, and that meant that we could not land early on. And when we got to opposite the beach in Normandy, again, it was a massive ships. You had to wait your turn to get off. We were 2 days sitting just outside with the Air Force and overhead, and the enemy doing their best to bomb us. Well, on the 8th of August it began. We were supporting a major armored thrust. General Simmons had invented a way of getting across the open ground without catalyst by taking the guns out of the self-propelled guns and track vehicles and the infantry riding through. Our job was to provide intense fire support, thousands of runs fired, and that was on the night of the August the 8th. We fired that, and then early morning we were told ceasefire. That was the end of that. We moved out and moved to a concentration area because our job now was to move with the advancing troops, fire and movement, which meant that we advanced and we kept moving the guns forward, as far forward. When the infantry and the armor had moved on, we went on again. On our first position after go south of Caen, there were some British engineers who offered to use a high explosive and help us to dig the gun pits, put the guns in. Of course, that threw great clouds of dust up, and the inevitable happened. The Germans rained mortar bombs on us. And we had a problem. We had several officers and others were wounded. I was lucky. I escaped. I was very lucky. I got hit with a bit of shrapnel once. My tank driver was killed by the same one, but I survived. It was a pretty hazardous kind of existence, but it was worthwhile. There was one battle which is mentioned in the books and so on the Küsten Canal. And the ground was so boggy that the only place the guns, I didn't do it, could be deployed was in a straight line along the bank of the canal. And the problem to get over the canal and attack the Germans, well, we finally did, and it was a very, very difficult operation, a lot of casualties. Finally, we got a word that it looked as the Germans were going to quit, and they did. But the joke was that our guns were loaded when the ceasefire came, and they couldn't be unloaded. So they had to get a position where they could target, and the guns were emptied. So that was the end. Of course, we knew afterward that General Eisenhower, it was a risky operation. That was the problem. It could have gone terribly wrong. And remember, this was 2 years after the Dieppe raid. But Eisenhower had prepared a statement regretting the failure in case it was necessary, but it wasn't. It was brilliantly carried out. We did the job that we had to do, and that was it. There's no thinking, I'm going to do something brave. We just had to do it. That was it. Well, I hope they won't forget. And what happened, we didn't talk about it when we got back after the war. It's only recently that we talked about what went on. And there's much more appreciation now than there was 30 years ago. When I go on Remembrance Day Parade, I'm usually the only Second World War veteran on parade. Well, I just hope they were remembering what was done and the sacrifice, and that's it.